Hello, Trailblazers, and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur Journey. And today I am super excited to have Gavin Scott on the program today. He is an impact leader and speaker and host, as you can see in the background, of Stay Outstanding podcast. How are you today, Gavin?
I'm really well, man. How are you doing, Doug?
I am amazing. I am so ready for 2021 has been good, but I am so ready for 2022. So much on the horizon. So I'm just super excited.
There's still so much to go in 2021. Let's give it our all and get the max from it, man.
That's right. That's right. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about maybe even about your podcast and some of the things that you're doing.
So basically, I used to be in real estate for 25 years. And during the lockdown, I reevaluated what I wanted to do with my life and how I could I guess live a life of service, because I'd always sort of been only really interested in my own self and my own progress. And I wanted to be a much bigger part of the wider global community. And my litmus test really for leaving real estate was, can I make an impact so great that it will change the world forever? And the answer was no. So I then started looking into what I was doing. And at that time, we were in lockdown, and a lot of us, I think, were probably not necessarily depressed psychologically, but depressed in our being, because we're so used to having our freedom, right? So I felt that if I couldn't impact my outside world, it was time to impact the inner world. And that's really when this all began. I started doing a lot of mindset work. I've got mentors and coaches and been on webinars and programs that I've signed up to and participated in, and obviously done a phenomenal amount of my own sort of research into mindset. And I just discovered basically that I really like helping people. I've always been a people's person. Technology isn't my forte, and I wanted to connect more with people. And my journey isn't just about me. So I decided that in order to have the impact I wanted, it wasn't just enough to say, have a podcast or be a coach. I needed to be a leader. And so really that's where this idea of being an impact leader came from. I'm swimming the Gibraltar Straits, which is something I also decided to do during lockdown. I was walking up and down the beach here in Spain, and I saw a light one day on this piece of land, and I thought, what's that? Can you swim there? And I can't tell you why that thought came to my mind. Can you swim there? It's like, is that a rational or normal thought? Like, a normal thought would be, is that coming off of a steeple? What's projecting that light? And I literally just took it as a sign. Anyway, that light turned out to be on a headland called Gibraltar, which of course you can swim to because it's a headland. You don't even have to swim there, really. And a few weeks later, I was walking again, and I saw another light behind it this time, and I just inquired as to what it was, and it was Africa. And I was like, wow, I mean, if you can see it, surely you can swim there. So I just started doing this research, and there's a federation challenge called the Gibraltar Straits. It's a 16.5-kilometer open water marathon, one of the toughest in the world. Huge currents, freezing cold water because it's the mouth to the Atlantic, and it's just an incredibly tough thing to do. So it's one thing to have the thought to do something, it's another thing to have a why, right? So wanting to impact the world, what was my why? Well, I've traveled so much in my life, which I'm so grateful for the experience of. And basically everywhere I've gone, I've seen places ruined or decimated by plastic pollution. So I decided that I wanted to do this to raise awareness around plastic pollution. And really interestingly, as a byproduct of that, it was like, well, people don't like the plastic police. You're not going to make friends being the plastic police, you know? So I was like, maybe this, well, how am I going to do this? And I then thought about what the actual problem behind plastic pollution is. You know, how do we stop it occurring? And it's education. And, you know, I'll be honest, Doug, when I was at school, I wasn't the best student. I sat in the back of the class a lot of time and, you know, made fun and did silly things. And so I thought, well, education is one way to go, but not every student, not every person follows a teacher, you know, an education process. So how do you make them follow you? And the only way is to lead by example. And that's really where a leadership perspective came into the idea of being an impact leader.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just so exciting. You know, I've had a few injuries already along the way. I've just started retraining yesterday. I've had 5 weeks out of the sport. So in swimming, you miss 3 days, you lose like 30%. You miss 10 days, you lose 50% of your endurance. You lose 5 weeks and you lose 95% of your endurance. So having had these injuries, you know, a lot of people, I think, would have just stopped. They would have been like, okay, you know what, I can't do this. My body's not primed for this. Well, everybody, listen up. My body's not primed for this either, right? Like, I'm not an athlete. Okay, I'm training to become an athlete, but effectively, it's mindset that's going to see me actually succeed in this challenge. Because, you know, starting again, you can either go, oh my God, I'm starting again. This is terrible. Like, where do I get the energy to re-go and re-go and re-go? Or you can be like, wow, you know what? I've got a new opportunity to create more awareness, to raise more funds for charity, to improve my technique, to get a better speed because I'm practicing more and my technique is always improving. So I think it's really about just constant improvement. And that's how it all started, Doug.
Can I ask you a question? Because I want to get your perspective on this, because something that you just said is that you're not an athlete, right? But
yeah,
from a mindset perspective, I want to get your perspective on this perspective. If you start out saying I am an athlete, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of I'm training to be an athlete, aren't you already putting yourself in the future self, right? So just give me your perspective on just terms that you would use to get to where you're going, because I'm sure you have a great perspective on that.
So it's a really insightful question, Doug, and thanks so much for asking. Yes and no. So when I first started the journey, I had a greater reason than myself to do it, which was the awareness and raising money for charity and all those sorts of things. And I had a personal reason. The personal reason was I had limited beliefs around my physical ability. I've always suffered injuries. It's always been 2 steps forwards, 3 steps backwards in my training. You know, historically, you'd find me talking about suffering from injury depression and things like that. So today, yes, you know, when I have some challenges in my own mindset, because my mindset isn't perfect and it's a constant work in progress, I will do affirmations. I am an athlete. That's an affirmation. I do have the body type to do this. That's an affirmation. I was obese. I'm now fit. That's an affirmation. Leaving the past behind. So I think it's difficult for the best people in the world to say, you know what, I'm going to do this challenge. Hey, I'm an athlete, and actually mean it and have it sink in meaningfully. I think with anything mindset, there's a process that we have to go through, right? There's the awareness. That's always number one. Then there's the practice. Then there's your own process. And then there's coming out of that the other side. So, I'm probably in my own process right now. And I'm the best part of 9 months into a training regime. And so, yes, there will become a point in time where I do say I'm an athlete, but in my meditations, or my visualizations, if you like, I will envisage myself, getting to Morocco and touching that rock and successfully, having completed the challenge, and maybe even a rocky move, on the top of the rock, as he does on the top of the stairs. So yeah, look, mindset's totally important. I think what also is important is not setting yourself up to fail. Like, day one, I'm an athlete. You know what? If your mindset is already in a good place, fair enough, do it. Nothing will serve you better. But, I was suffering from injury depression. I had limited beliefs. I had suffered a bad experience in my business life. I suffered from obesity. And so I think if you say day one with all those scenarios attached, I'm an athlete, all you're doing is actually making the challenge more difficult, because, in order to succeed in life, we've got to put in these little succinct steps and keep getting there, as opposed to ratchet big steps and each time try and reach for the sky. I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to do to reach for the sky, but particularly when you're starting off with those scenarios, then I would suggest just little steps would be better.
So maybe saying I am better today than I was yesterday, every day. And you're closer to being able to say, I am an athlete.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I can say I'm an athlete. And maybe from my heart, I mean it. Maybe from my brain, I mean it. But do I embody everything that is being an athlete? Only I think at the point when you really embody that whole spirit of being an athlete, do you actually become an athlete. And whilst you can do that in visualizations and meditations, it's a very different thing to doing that in real life and meaning it, like, as I said, I just think it's a process. You can't go from A to Z.
Kind of another look at this, and we are way off script, and that's fine with me. Usually I do a bunch of getting to know you questions, and then we roll into some other things, but this is fascinating to me. So one of the things that I think about this is, if I say, we'll just keep running with the I'm an athlete example, right? If I say I'm an athlete, in my mind, I start doing the things that an athlete would do, right? It kind of reverse hacking it in a way. You're changing your mindset in order to fulfill what you're saying, and you're doing the things in order to fulfill what you're saying about yourself. So yes, I get both perspectives, right?
So look, there's no right or wrong. It's only really what's right for you. If you sit with a life coach, an impact leader, anyone that's trying to offer guidance through service, you often find that if you go straight for the gut, straight for the throat, and go, here's everything you need, this is the information, do it, you're also not going to serve them in the best way. So, you have to really start by opening one's mind and widening their perspectives. And often people that come to me, they don't come with that wide open mentality. So it is a process. I think the other thing to say is that, I've talked about this injury depression, and I've had 2 injuries. And what happens when I get injured, historically, and I'm improving, but I've noticed that, I still have some bad habits, and I do still slip in my regime when I'm injured, is I end up binge eating and saying, you know what, stretching today. I can't, there's no point in me doing it because I can't, go and do the training I need to do, which is your ego talking. You're not trying to put out the fire, you're stoking it that way. And that's not a good thing to do. But if you don't have the awareness when that ego kicks in to then go and change it, right, then it becomes a very, very difficult game to get the right mindset. So, when I take people through a process, I like to start at the beginning. And I don't think day one saying, right, you want to swim to Africa? You're an athlete, man. Go on, do it.
Yeah, they're not going to go jump in the water and they're going to jump in the water and drown.
Well, there's that, but you don't know what other circumstances are going on in one's life. So, we really take a holistic approach and basically see what's going on so that we can not fix, that's a terrible word, because there's nothing wrong with us. We're all human, but just tweak some of the things that are going on behind the scene.
Yeah, nice. So I'm going to jump back and get back on track with the original flow of things so we can kind of get to know you better. So we've had previous conversations, and I know that you love to travel. What is one of your favorite trips that you've ever taken?
This, I saw your questions come in, and this was such a tough question. I mean, you've said one. I've had so much difficulty.
Well, just pick one. It doesn't necessarily have to be your favorite, but just tell us about one of your favorites.
Yeah, I've thought about this, and I'm going to give you Kilimanjaro. I'm sitting with my brother one day, and he goes, "I've dreamed of going to Kilimanjaro and climbing, summiting it for years." And I was like, wow, really? I didn't know this dream of yours. He's like, and every year my friend just has an excuse or a reason not to do it. And I was like, wow, man, this is so powerful. This is my brother, like this is somebody I love and idolize, and he's such a great man. And I just wanted to help. Like, I wanted to help him fulfill his dreams, So spur of the moment, it's not something that I thought about. I just said, Nick, whatever it takes, I don't care. I'm not canceling. There's no reason for me to pull out. I'm going with you. I'll do it. You don't have to rely on your friend. Let's go. And from that moment on, we started to plan. I was living out in Central America at the time. So I went hiking in the rainforests for hours and hours. There was actually this one time where I decided just to walk along the road up to the next town, which was like 30 kilometers away.
Wow.
And I got on the bus at the town and went back, and I was just walking through the town, and somebody said, "Hey, Gav, what's going on? Did I see you this morning, like at 4 a.m. walking along the road?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I was just, practicing, just getting in my miles." And my brother was training in Morocco and across the Atlas Mountains and Wales. And we also decided, because we were doing it together, which was really such a nice bonding experience, that because we were doing it together, let's do it for a cause as well, So we decided to raise money for cancer research. Our mum passed away many moons ago now from cancer. So that was something that, really heightened the experience to be able to do it for that cause, and to give back and help people through the donation was really such a big thing. And
awesome.
If anyone's listening and you've got aspirations to, I don't know, climb a summit or go to Kilimanjaro, don't hesitate. It's such a beautiful place. When you're doing these high level ascensions, you have to like go up and come down and go up and come down so that you get used to the altitude. Otherwise, you get altitude sickness. And the amazing thing about Kilimanjaro was the difference in the terrain. There was like 7 different stages or styles of terrain. And each day we had this wonderful experience. And we were in a group that we decided to go with, also raising for cancer research. And, we met people from all around the world, all around the UK. And, they're not the everyday people we meet, and just being able to spend time with them. And it was just such a wonderful experience. And I'll never forget the night of the summit. We're woken up at like 2 a.m. We're going to get to the summit for sunrise. And, it's pitch black. There's stars everywhere. And it's freezing cold. And as we go up the mountain, the local porters are singing a Kenyan kind of like lullaby. And it was just so magical, those tones and the stars, and just, it was a magical experience. So that's the one travel story I wanted to share with you, but wow, I've got so many others.
That is amazing. It makes me want to go there for sure. So let's get back to your swimming for a minute. I know you're still training to swim to Gibraltar, right? So what has been the previous longest swim that you've done?
So just before I picked up an injury in August, I'd swam 8 kilometers.
Wow.
In the sea.
Wow, nice. I like to think I'm a good swimmer, but I can just do a few laps in the pool.
Well, I tell you what was really funny is, I don't have one of those nice smart watches that tells you data. So I'd used Google Maps, and I'd basically not been able to break 6.5 kilometers resistance for about a month. And it was really affecting my mindset. And I actually did a podcast episode on this called Singularity of Mindset. And I said, right, this weekend, no matter what, that's the day I'm going to break it. And so I went on the maps and I said, okay, that's where I'm going to turn around, and that's where I'm going to come back. And it just so happened that my turnaround point coincided with the golf course where I play. So at the halfway turn, I quickly I didn't even plan this. I just saw players up there on the green putting. I just sort of got out of the sea, ran up to the green. I was like, hey, yo, guys, I play here all the time. Do you mind if I just take a photo with you guys for my, crew? And so I'm stood there in my goggles and whatever else, and just taking a selfie photo with these guys on the 10th green. And it's obviously a beautiful hole because it comes down to the seafront. And that was a couple of minutes, and I went back in and off I went again. So 8 kilometers, that's the max I've done.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I'm sure that is a remarkable photo, because you wouldn't expect to see someone in goggles and swim trunks on the golf course.
You wouldn't. I'll share a JPEG with you. I made a little post about it.
I would love to see that. So I know that you're also into cycling, if I remember correctly, and swimming. So have you ever thought about doing an Ironman competition?
Yes.
Okay.
Not before I started this training.
Nice.
One of my swim partners was like, we should do it this year, and I was just like, maybe we shouldn't, maybe we should focus on the task at hand. Mm-hmm. And if we feel like it, let's do another challenge. I don't know how this swim is going to go, so I really want to get that under my belt. I've got a limited belief around my physical ability to run, particularly on concrete. So that's one of the main reasons why I would want to do it. And, I'm over 40, so show the 20-year-olds that when you're 40 plus, you can do it. I just want to do it so I can tell people that you can do it anytime in life. But I don't know why. This is probably going to sound completely absurd. And I've not really voiced this on camera before, so I'm a little nervous to do so. But and it kind of seems a bit like that moment that I talked about earlier, where there was that light and I saw it. But there's this little, I don't know, thing inside me biting away, saying, see how the swim goes. If you enjoy it, then choose a bigger swim. Mm. And, you know, the Gibraltar Straits is one of the ocean's 7 challenges. So there's 7 challenges around the world in sort of those kind of canals, if you like. So the English Channel is another. There's one over in Japan, one in Hawaii. They're all over the world. And, you know, it kind of interests me. Like, let's start clocking up the 7, right? Let's do it.
Yeah.
But actually it doesn't.
Oh.
And the reason it doesn't is because so many people have done it before. Like, it doesn't have to be proved that it can be done. So I've been thinking about circumnavigating the Mediterranean.
Wow.
Start in Portugal, go across Spain, France, down Italy, into Cyprus, around the African hook all the way along there, and finish back up in Morocco. I don't think that's ever been done before. And for some reason, that really excites me. But
any idea on the mileage on that?
I still haven't worked it out, but it's from a guesstimate, I reckon it's 50 times the Gibraltar Straits.
Wow.
You know, like it would be serious. I don't know if I'm going to do it. It's not. It's also something that I don't really want to truly contemplate, which is why I haven't done the research of the mileage until I've got the first hurdle out of the way, which is obviously completing successfully my Gibraltar Straits challenge.
I would like to introduce you to, off camera, of course, to another person that has been on the Entrepreneur Journey why did I call it a contest? Entrepreneur Journey podcast. Mark Jackson. He is probably around 50 years old, and he runs Ironmans to this day. And you also have a common connection in the real estate world. So I think he would be a really good someone for you both to know each other. So
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your entrepreneur journey a little bit. You delved into this a little bit, but can you tell us why you wanted to be an entrepreneur in the first place?
This is such a fascinating question. I did a first year thesis at university, if you can call it a thesis. Are entrepreneurs born or are they made? And there's a lot of science around this. And like with everything in life, there's very varying opinions. If you're one side, you can find opinions that say yes. And if you're the other, you can find opinions that say no. But I believe I was born an entrepreneur, you know, and I wrote that in my essay, and they basically failed me because I didn't put 2 sides of the argument, which I now reflect and understand why they would want to see that. But I didn't, so they flunked me. But I think it's something in your nature, something in your character. And, you know, there were signs from a very young age that I was an entrepreneur. I used to go to car boot sales with my parents when I was like 8 years old. I started doing them at like 12, 13 on my own. You know, my oldest brother would drive me down there. I started doing big Sunday markets. My brother had a software company at the time, and I'd get cheap stock from him, and I'd be down the market going, two for a $5 or 3 for a 10. Step up, come and get your Sunday deal, you know, like whatever it was. And just that interacting with people, that negotiating, just I loved it. It was just a thrill for me. And, you know, I was living in Central America on and off for the best part of 12 years. And I moved back. And one of the reasons I moved back was it was a bit like my litmus test to leave real estate. It was like, can I fulfill my entrepreneurial journey here? You know, like, and the answer was not really. I mean, perhaps today it's different because of technology, but back then, it was like not really. So I've always had it in my mind that I'm a businessman, that I'm, good at business. I'm great with people. I instinctively know what a good deal is. But more than that, it's just something, it's like a light shining in my heart. I just, I love the entrepreneurial way. There's so many people that want to be entrepreneurs, or even call themselves entrepreneurs because they've started a business. But no disrespect to those people, by the way, but I think being an entrepreneur is much more than that.
Yeah, a lot of people I think they have become entrepreneurs. They just created a job for themselves.
That's another way of viewing it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It takes a certain makeup to be an entrepreneur. You have to be okay with some things that other people would not be okay with.
Absolutely.
So I know that you're a speaker as well. How did you know speaking was something you wanted to do?
Well, through various stages of my life, I've, had to make speeches, be it hosting parties or at big weddings and gatherings, and, at university or at school, even, at the end of class year, giving a speech. And there's people that quake at the idea of standing up in front of people. Like I've got a friend, he would go to a meeting with just like 6-7 bosses and present, not even speak, but just present. I think speaking is very different to presenting. And he would literally like get dizzy in the middle of his presentation, and he'd be like, wow. Like, I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna have to sit down, and he'd carry on his presentation. So wow. It's not for everybody, but it's like, I did a post about this, when I'm doing lives, at the moment I'm holding the camera up and it's in my face and it's right there, and it's a limited belief and I'm working on it, but I really don't feel comfortable. Like I'm looking at the camera, it's right in my face. I don't really enjoy that. But what I enjoy is having a live audience that you are affecting their being, and like when you speak and you speak like from heart and you're making an impact, there's real emotion to what you're doing. There's real meaning. There's real motivation. Then, I'm perfectly comfortable in front of thousands of people, literally, because if you do it right, you will see the change in the crowd, like their body language and the way that they react to you. And I just love that interaction, to just be able to pass on a positive message and have people react positively. It's a bit like a good DJ, in a nightclub. Like the DJ is constantly watching how people are reacting to the music he's playing, and he will either change the style or the tempo to keep the beat up, right? The mood in the room. So that I just, I really love speaking for that reason, to be able to affect the mood in the room.
Nice. And I love that you compared it to being uncomfortable doing the selfie type style lives, because you would think naturally somebody that's like speaking in front of a crowd also would be really adept just speaking on camera just by themselves. But I guess that's not necessarily the case, right? I once had a preacher who, he's great in front of the congregation, was dynamic. But in our one-on-one conversation, he told me that's the only place I can do that. He's like, I cannot speak in front of other crowds. I cannot like get on camera and talk. And I just thought, man, he's just so good. But that's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens is, when I'm on stage speaking, I'm looking at the room, right? I'm interacting with those souls there. Whereas when I'm selfieing, I'm actually looking straight at myself, it's showing me a reflection of myself. And it's something I'm working on again, yes, I have a podcast about mindset. Yes, I'm an impact leader. This is my journey, and I'm constantly a work in progress, and I'm always improving. But when I've got that reflection of myself there, I don't like to be a perfectionist anymore. I used to be, but I now consider perfectionism the art of procrastination.
Yes, I love that.
And so basically what happens is I will look at myself and I will self-judge myself. And, just all of those kind of ego questions that come in. What are the audience thinking of me? That's the problem. I'm not looking at the audience. I'm looking at a connection with myself. And it doesn't mean that I don't have a great connection with myself, because I do. But it's something I'm also working on, like everybody else. So, they say in the business, it takes one to know one. I've gone through my own journey. I hope your listeners can see that. I'm not here to bullshit anybody or say that I'm some kind of great person that nobody else can live up to my level or anything. I'm just trying to share my wisdoms that I've learned along the way.
That's who people, when you can be authentic, people resonate more anyway. I don't resonate with these people that seem larger than life and too good to be true, right?
For sure, man.
So where do you see your journey taking you over the next few years?
You know what? This was such an interesting question. I decided not to really prepare for this one too much. And the reason I decided not to prepare for it too much is because it's so exciting. The possibilities are endless. Yes, there are moments of fear that come in. Will I be able to afford to have a family, look after a family, provide the healthcare, the education, all of those things? Because nothing is certain, right? And we're talking about the future here. So yeah, I've got those moments of fear for sure. But on the other side of that, there's just this totally endless possibility. My limitless potential is, as it says, limitless. How do we define human potential? Well, the question is, can you do one more of whatever it is you're trying to achieve? So, I always think that I can do one more. Let's just take it back simply to swimming so people can relate to it. Can I do one, when I'm done, can I do one more length? And the answer is, I always can. And that's human potential, and it's limitless if you tap into it. So where do I see my journey going? Man, I don't know. I want to raise so much awareness. I want to help so much with people. I'm obviously coaching, so I'd really like to kind of progress that more, have sort of, not only a one-to-one with individuals, but also start working with entrepreneurs, start working with corporates, and really trying to create an impact. You can hear me say from time to time, I want to affect one mindset at a time, which is totally true. But if I can affect more than one, then we're going to get this world into a better place sooner and faster and quicker, which means we're all going to be living at higher vibration. And that only means better results for everybody here on Earth. So I've got some ideas, entrepreneurial ideas. I wasn't going to share them because, they're, only ideas. But
right.
If you like, I will, since this is the entrepreneur's journey.
It's totally up to you. If you feel comfortable doing it.
A quick dive into it. Just
okay.
Please don't hold me into it, guys, because I don't know where this is going to go, right? But the plastic stuff. What can I do from an entrepreneur's perspective? Not from an impact leader's, not from a coach's perspective. What can I do from my entrepreneurial perspective? Well, maybe there's something there. Maybe I can recycle plastic. Okay, there's a lot of people doing it, but there's so much plastic out there. There's always more that we can do. I haven't quite worked out the niche yet as to how I would do it. So I think that's probably why I haven't sort of gone, you know what, I'm going to do this. But that's definitely a really fascinating angle that interests me from an entrepreneur's perspective. There's the whole sustainability game with the net zero conversations that are going on right now. So, if I can help individuals modify their lifestyle to become more net zero, and help the bigger net zero communities to reach that goal, then that would also really interest me. So there's things in the pipeline, but I haven't thought too much about the future because I'm just so happy where I am now. I'm training for this swim, and also I'm doing my own work. There's the podcast, which I'm really super excited about to sort of increase my reach out to the world. And guys, if you're listening and you listen to any of my podcasts, please, it's so important for me and Doug. Just send us a message. Give us some feedback, good or bad. It really doesn't matter. But just to know that you guys are listening and in whatever form you appreciate it, that's great. We'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to put the links to the podcast after. We're not done with the interview yet, but we'll put the links to the Stay Outstanding podcast underneath the video when we're done and in the show notes on this podcast. So if you have not heard an episode yet of the Stay Outstanding podcast, go check that out. But let's dive into some of your expertise. And I want to know, what does it mean to be an impact leader? And before you answer this question, I want to applaud you, first of all, because I love how you seem to tie everything to a cause. And I think part of your answer might be in that, but what does it mean to be an impact leader?
I mean, it means the world to me personally. I'm just feeling a nice, warm sensation resonating through my inner body at the moment at the idea of being this impact leader. And really what it means to me is to have people appreciate what I do, respect what I do, and more than anything, find insights and value in it. And then to take those away and go and improve their own lives or their own business or other companies or pressure groups, whatever it is that we're talking about. But just, from whatever value I'm giving and offering, to go away and impact their own lives. We mentioned it earlier, leading from the front. I'm actually currently writing my autobiography, and it's going to be entitled Leading from the Front. And I just, you want to see the change, you got to be the change. I've talked about, I don't really want to deep dive into this, but I'm going to mention it very quickly. I've talked to my closest friends about Brexit. They all hate Brexit, which is fine. Hate it, like it, whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. The point I'm trying to make is that they're talking about what the government did, what the government is doing. And I'm like, hey guys, you only took an interest when this occurred. So if you want to affect what's happening in government, you have to get in at an earlier stage so that you can have your, persuasion, so that you can add your vote, so that you can have some kind of a say. That's what the podcast for me was about. It was about creating a platform for my voice to share my insights and my value with the world. Well, you know what? There's plenty of ways politically that we can share our value. But if you just want to sit at home and say, they're a bad prime minister, they're a bad president, and you're not doing anything yourself, you're not taking action, then I don't think that it's fair for you to criticize those people. So, always ask the question, what can I do to help? not what I can do to change the scenario. I think that's very sort of one-minded and in many ways selfish. But what can I do to help? If your idea of helping is Brexit side, or your idea of helping is non-Brexit side, then find a way of helping.
I love that insight. That is awesome. So I saw on your social post, and I'm sure many people have seen the Iceberg Illusion, right? About what you see on top isn't necessarily all that's there. So just kind of expand on that from your perspective, if you would.
So I'm going to relate this to two different experiences in my life. Let's start with the swimming, right? I'm swimming to Africa. That's what people hear. They're like, oh, really? Okay, cool. But they don't acknowledge what it took to make the decision. They don't acknowledge what it takes to do the training. They don't acknowledge that I had to go out there and, create my value in the world so that I could hire my own coach to teach me how to swim. I'm swimming in cold waters. I'm swimming at all sorts of times of day. Sometimes I'm at the gym. I'm cycling. I'm doing all of these things. And in the Iceberg Illusion, here's the bottom of the iceberg. Then the sea's here and the little peak is up here, right? People don't see that. So the hours I've been putting in training, in the pool, in the sea, cycling, at the gym, creating my value to get a coach, always looking to better myself. So that's what the Iceberg Illusion is all about. It's about what happens behind the scenes. So actually, you can tell the people that are really interested in what you do, because they'll begin to scrape at some of this stuff and ask questions out of curiosity. But, a lot of people would be like, wow, okay, you're crazy, or wow, that's a great cause, or wow, that's a great thing to do. But that thought in their mind is just that. It doesn't go into what's happening behind the scenes. The other thing I'd relate the Iceberg Illusion to is, I guess, let's relate it to my entrepreneurial journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned earlier, I've always been an entrepreneur. I did boot sales, markets. I've got so many stories about entrepreneurial activities I've done. I won't go into them, so I'll just cut it short for a second. But basically, I've created my own companies. The biggest one that I created, unfortunately, was closed in 2018. My then investors decided that it was better to bankrupt me and take the capital that I had sitting in the parent company than it was to support me for a bit longer to get their money out of the projects. And it wasn't illegal what they did. It was certainly, from my perspective, unethical. But there's that saying in business, know who you're getting into bed with. And I guess, I didn't know. But at the same time, in 2009, when I started the business, nobody could raise money. The layman's thing had just happened. And there I was raised money. So, everything in life happens for a reason. If we take the pinnacle of my entrepreneurial journey that is still ahead of me, whatever that might be, then there's slightly lower in the pinnacle, the coaching and the podcasting and all of these other things. And below it, there's my company that I started from zero and went to 60 million turnover. There's my market days, there's my boot sale days, there's all this other stuff that went on. So I think when you say you're an entrepreneur, as we just mentioned a few minutes ago, there's this connotation of he's an entrepreneur. But actually, people don't really know what it means to be an entrepreneur. I mean, there have been days where I've gone to my penny pot and I've counted my pennies and I've gone down the store and bought a loaf of bread. There's months where I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. There were, there's so many ingredients to being an entrepreneur, the uncertainty, the challenges. And those all sit there on the bottom of the iceberg, and they're big, big things. So really, yeah, it's a bit like what I call the plastic illusion, if you like, which is out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I actually have it over here on the wall. You can't see it. One of my favorite things, one of my favorite sayings is, today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. Most people will not go through a lot of things that an entrepreneur will have to go through. And a lot of people just see that tip of the iceberg, right? And they think, oh, that I want to be an entrepreneur, but they're not willing to do all the stuff that's underneath to get there. So I love that. Thank you. So one more question. In your expert opinion, is your mindset something that has to be stoked like a fire, or for fear of losing it to the force of the wind?
Another great question, Doug. The fear of losing it to the wind. Well,
I know that's kind of woo-woo or whatever you want to call it.
No, I do get it. Look, I'm going to relate it to my own mindset journey, right? You can either choose to not be lazy and learn. You can choose to research. And in learning and doing research, you then go ahead and do practice, right? Well, if you don't do research, you don't learn. If you don't learn, you don't do practice. Mindset is just like building a muscle. If you don't go to the gym, you won't build muscles. So, if you want to stoke the fire, you got to practice. You got to research, and that's basically what I would say. I mean, there is no shortcut. Like, I've noticed in my own journey, there'll be times where I'll not lose sight, but I'll just be on a lower vibration, and everything will start to sort of seem worse than it is. And I'll start to make bigger deal of it. Like, it's really affecting me, almost like a depression, if you like. And I'm very grateful for my practice, because it's allowed me to become aware of that process quicker. And so I can turn that negative back into a positive quicker. I've not perfected it yet. Like, I know some guys and coaches that can, change a mindset in like 20 to 30 seconds or 1 to 2 minutes. I'm kind of, at the 20 to 30 minute level sometimes, depending on how bad it is. But I know that it used to take me days. I know it used to take me months. In fact, I wasn't even consciously aware of it for years. When I had my big awakening, if you like, I was like, damn, man, what have you done with Gav? Where's he gone? In fact, not where's he gone, where's he been? Like all of a sudden, to go from unconscious reaction to conscious action is huge. And it doesn't happen overnight. And as I said, you got to do the research, the learning, and the practice. So yeah, in answer to your question, if you want a better mindset, you've got to stoke the fire 100%. I mean, we can sit here today and we can decide that we can be the drivers of our mind. We can take it where we want to go, or we can let our minds drive us. What do we want? What do you want? I know from speaking to you, Doug, you're very much on the side of, I'm going to drive my mind and I'm going to do what I want. And, that's just, take my hat off to you, man. It's just such a nice, refreshing kind of perspective to interact with, because there's not a lot of us out there, to be honest, that realize how big the mindset game is.
And I'll just kind of delve into my journey a little bit here. And because one of the reasons I asked this question is because I kind of went through a thing where I had reached a certain level of success and I started coasting, right? And that was all mindset. I stopped pushing because I was like, I'm just comfortable now. And it really, what I said I was comfortable. I convinced myself I was comfortable, but I really wasn't. in the back, there was always something in the back of my mind saying, what are you doing? This is not you. So yeah, that's one of the reasons, because I felt like I needed someone to come along and stick that twig in the fire and stoke it. And that's kind of what happened. I had someone come along and say, what's up with you, man? This is not you. So, and I was like, you know what? You're right.
That's the thing. And it comes back to what we were talking about earlier when you said, say now I'm an athlete. If you try and push somebody too fast, then they're going to trip, right? So you got to go through the process, man. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to connect with you and collaborate with you and just be a part of the entrepreneur journey. And thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you. Now, before we sign off, I do want you to let everyone know how to, if they're interested in possibly working with you, just connecting with you, checking out your podcast, all those things. So please let everyone know how to do any or all of that.
Thank you for that, Doug. Guys, the podcast, simple. At the moment, you can find it on Spotify or Google Podcast. As I said, please do rate it, like it, listen to it, send me a message wherever you can. stayoutstandingpodcast@gmail.com if you want to send me a direct email. We've got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. It's all under Stay Outstanding or Stay Outstanding Podcast, so you can find me there. And if you're interested in any coaching and you'd just like to have a conversation and see if it's something you're interested in, then I'm sure that if you just email me, I'll be able to get straight back to you.
Awesome. Thanks again, Gavin and Trailblazers. We are signing off, and I hope to see you all on the next Entrepreneur Journey episode.